Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me here on the Los Banos Today Show. My name is Dave Hogue, and welcome back. Listen, I've been listening to you. You've been asking me to get both candidates who are running for mayor for the city of Los Banos on the show. I reached out to both candidates, Tom Faria, Paul Llanez, and I asked them, would you be willing to come on the show and answer some questions? Both candidates agreed. About a month ago, we asked many of you to contact us and let us know if we got these candidates on the show, what questions would you want us to ask them? So many of you reached out to us and sent us some questions, as well as we've taken some questions in many of the posts that we've had in our group, and we've pulled those out to get those questions answered for you. So we hope you hang around. It's going to be a long video, but if you hang around and watch, you may get your question answered in this video. This video is going to cover a whole host of topics. Okay? So we asked both candidates the same questions. Okay? And we're going to go through each of those questions with both of the candidates. You're going to hear both of them answering the same question. Okay? We hope that by doing this, you will be better informed and more able to make a better decision when you go to vote, to cast your vote this November during election time. I hope you enjoy this video. I hope this is a very informative and educational video. And if you ever want to see another video like this, you can always reach out to us at losbanostoday.com/contact us, or go on our Facebook page and message us. And remember, the Los Banos Today Show is brought to you by the Central Valley Geeks, your Microsoft certified computer repair professionals. Here's just some of the services they offer over there at the Geeks: virus and malware removal, computer and laptop upgrades, either Mac or PC, laptop, screen, keyboard, and battery replacements, remote repair services. That's right, never bring your computer into the computer shop again. The Geeks can fix your computer remotely. Give the Geeks a call today at 209-826-3410. That number again, 209-826-3410. Or stop by their location at 924 6th Street in the heart of Los Banos. Up first today is Council Member Tom Ferria. Hello, Mr. Ferria, and thank you for joining us here on the show. We appreciate you taking some time to answer these questions and for giving us your feedback. For those of our viewers who may not know you, could you please introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background and experience?
I grew up in the Tracy area. I went to Tracy High School, and then went to University of the Pacific, Conservatory of Music, and got my degree in music education. I taught for 2 years for Central Catholic School and Central Catholic High School, along with the elementaries attached to it. And then I was offered the job in Los Banos in 1985, and I've been teaching band and choir, and taught piano, taught guitar, and I teach for the college. Growing up, I grew up in a family where my father was a truck driver and my mother's family were farmers. And so my whole life from childhood was big equipment and trucks, and was a lot of fun. I also was able to ride with Dad in the truck because he owned his own truck. So I got to go to the factories and see the factories work and see how logistics worked, and moving things around and shipping and all of that. So it was a very wonderful childhood, great education for future of my life. Came to Los Banos, taught music. We have 2 daughters and they have their families. In 2006, I was concerned that the city was building too many houses for the services it was offering, including schools. And so I ran for city council and got elected that year. And I've been on city council now for 14 years. And I'm still teaching for both Los Banos Unified School District and Merced College.
Tom, the number one question on everyone's mind these days is crime and gangs in the city of Los Banos. Can you tell us, Tom, if elected, what would you do to both support and grow our police and fire departments?
Sure. Well, crime fighting is there's crime prevention and there's crime response. And generally, our crime rates shortly after I got elected in the years following, for most of the time, have actually been lower. If you check citydata.com, they've been lower than they were before I got elected. And I've always been a very strong supporter of public safety. Every once in a while, we get a spike. And the last time we had a spike, the Attorney General sent down a big task force and arrested over 100 gangsters in one day.
Wow.
And whenever we have these spikes, then we have to reach out. And we have been talking at the city lately about reaching out for some extra support from the county and perhaps the state to help rein this in. These spikes happen every now and then, whether it's idle time from the COVID, I don't know, but in this situation, but we do see them. So we are addressing it, and I think we're addressing it well. I have always supported the measure P, the measure A, the measure K, which are essentially the same measure re-upped to pay for public safety only. Then recently we supported and passed measure H, which 85% of that's a sales tax, is for public safety only. 15% is for public amenities. So those public amenities can also help you get a sense of community when we get done with the COVID stuff. The sense of community helps to prevent crime too, which I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on. As far as increasing our police force, we have been working at that. We're always competing with better paying cities because we don't have the kinds of resources. Our general fund has just now climbed up to 15, 16 million. We were looking at a possible 19 million general fund over the next year or two from all the extra taxes that have been coming in from all the commerce. And there's 41,000 people in town but you take some of these well-to-do cities like Menlo Park or San Carlos, they've got 20,000 people with anywhere from 50 to over $100 million general fund. So right now we're holding steady, and we've hired a new police officers. We're doing all we can to keep them and recruit them. We're also working on building a new police station. We purchased the ground next to the courthouse. Also for fire, we have purchased the ground with the help of a grant that we acquired, $5 million and we've got the property there, excuse me, to build a new fire station and the training system. And so this Measure H money is helping a great deal to increase salaries, increase numbers, and then of course for facilities, we have to look for a lot of different places, that kind of money, and it's a lot. Police and fire are primarily funded from general fund. Right now we have a reserve, a very healthy reserve, which we've done a good job of being fiscally responsible. One of the problems, the challenges we have is we don't know, it's going to take 6 months or a year before we know what the COVID-19, what the effect is going to be on the tax revenues. We know that the gross domestic product dropped by annual rate of 40% in the first quarter of this year, or second quarter, I forget, but it was a huge drop. That means sales tax drops. So we have to we're like a ship. The city is like a ship in a storm called COVID-19. Yeah. And we have to hold that ship steady, wait to see what these numbers are going to be before we go too far forward. We are, though, even within these limitations we have, with the help of Measure H particularly, and PAK, those measures, we are hiring and doing our best in recruiting, sending people off to academy, hiring and recruiting for police, and hoping to expand the fire staff as well. If we can afford to do that, I would like to see that.
We all know jobs is the second most asked question by our viewers. And the big question on everyone's mind is, if elected, how do you feel about bringing tech and manufacturing jobs to the city of Los Banos, and how would you go about doing that?
Tech manufacturing is a particular challenge. The tech My son-in-law worked in, and I talked to him about this extensively because he worked in both, he worked in commercial and residential real estate in the Bay Area. And he dealt with the real estate there all the way from San Francisco to Monterey. And he said the tech industry likes its brain trusts close to each other. They, in the brain trust type area where they're really generating new software and whatnot, that is that they like they want all the people in the same room together. Zoom meetings don't work well for those people. And also the manufacturers and their various suppliers, they have the Oakland port and rail there. They also have the employees like to have some entertainment and to be able to get to entertainment. Well, with BART and public transportation, you can be anywhere in the Bay Area. You can watch a professional ball game or a concert, whatever you like. And so we don't have that to offer. And so we do have some tech jobs here. We have a very highly sophisticated small light bulb factory. A gentleman invented a special kind of an LED light bulb system, and he has a small factory here in town. We have the fabricating place out there, Mona Giuliani set up, rest in peace, out there just west of town. And we have a couple of fabricators around town, welders and whatnot. As far as the technology, like building computers and whatnot here, I don't think you're going to see a lot of that here. I don't think I don't think they want to come here because of that 100 miles over the hill. I think they like their situation there, where they're all close together. So that is a real challenge. Would I like to have that business here? Yes. Would I like to have those factories here? Yes. But once again, we're in stiff competition when you're competing against, Santa Clara County and Menlo Park.
Now, we've all heard that there might be a business park built in Los Banos. What are your thoughts on that?
We had a lot of energy going there, but one of the problems we found after we did some research is there's a little water problem there. So you have to get water out there. If it's city water, it'd be plumbed a long way. So that's kind of taken a backseat to the industrial. We've hired a recruiter for industrial businesses, just as we did commercial businesses with, Buxton brought us things like Ross and Marshalls and Dutch Bros and Chipotle. We've hired a consulting firm like that, but to bring industrial business, manufacturing jobs. They have told us that we are a middle-size manufacturing area. We can't handle the big manufacturing in our town. Out in the country areas, the rural areas, we have some of the biggest tomato canneries in the world. But in town, which is what brings the big benefit to the tax base, but anywhere you get those big factories, you benefit your community for jobs. There's a lot of jobs out at the canneries, and a lot of them pay very well. But we're looking to recruit more of that middle industrial. Los Banos has another challenge in the industrial area, in that some industries create byproducts that can't be, it costs too much to process them because we're in the middle of the wetlands. And so we can't contaminate wetlands with the byproducts from manufacturing, because those are protected lands and we don't want to see those lands damaged. So that's the challenge we face there, but we are moving ahead and we're being very methodical and I think very successful so far with these pursuing new business to come to town and industrial development as well.
Biggins Texas Barbecue. No one does barbecue like Biggins, located at 639 9th Street in Los Banos, California. The bypass has been the elephant in the room, so to speak, for many years. And with the widening of Pioneer Road, we may get just a local bypass. Do you feel that that's going to be an adequate method of relieving congestion on Pacheco Boulevard? And what are your thoughts on this?
The big challenge Los Banos has and Pacheco Boulevard, if it weren't for Pacheco Boulevard, realize we're only 41,000 people.
Yeah.
If it weren't for Pacheco Boulevard, you would not see that giant Home Depot. You would not see that giant Target. You would not see Harbor Freight and Hobby Lobby and all these stores that people like. You wouldn't see the all the Starbucks along, that people like that too, and just opened a new one. So we get that a lot of sales tax from that highway. If you were to lose the sales tax from that highway, it's millions of dollars that would be lost. Right. What we want to do is we want to, I want to see Pioneer Road widened. I don't want to see a bypass built, but if you widen Pioneer, which the locals already know how to get around Pacheco Boulevard. Right. Go to Pioneer, go to I Street. If they want to go way around, they'll go to Henry Miller. But the Pioneer idea of widening that will make that road more comfortable for people, locals using it. I don't want to see a complete bypass unless the only way I would ever support a bypass is if we would be able to annex every junction. I grew up in Tracy, and I lived in Tracy, had Highway 50 coming through it, 11th Street. When they built 205, their restaurants, fuel, and hotels all died, along with a whole bunch of retail. Right. To this day, 2 or 3 years ago, Tracy City Council was working on a law about what you could and couldn't do with the buildings that are still there that they can't fill anymore because they don't have that traffic. Right. I don't want to see that situation happen here. Right. Relieve that traffic, particularly the local people coming around town, but keep that flow of money coming in, because realize when people come from somewhere else and spend their money, we get their money, but we don't have to provide them water, sewer, garbage, police, right. Fire services, schools. They leave their money and go. The tourist dollar is the biggest dollar you can make. Yeah. So it's one of those things you have to be very careful. When the northern route bypass, the big one that was going to go north of town there, came through, I said, well, I'll support this if we can annex every junction, because the junctions are where the restaurants, the fueling stations, the snack stations, and the hotels are going to be. Don't forget transit occupancy, TOT, transit occupancy tax in hotels. That's a big chunk of change that comes to the city too. You would lose that too. So you don't want to shoot the old, don't cut off your nose to spite your face. If you were to completely bypass Los Banos, I grew up in Tracy and I watched 205 bypass the town. And then now 205 is a parking lot at 5 o'clock every day. Yeah. And people are using the old road through town as a bypass to the bypass. Right. And so if we move cautiously and wisely, we can widen Pioneer. We're probably going to need a sound wall along there. That's if you're going to have more traffic through there, that's going to need a sound wall along the whole strip. Realize that there's a strip of Pioneer that's not annexed. And there's no housing there. There's still some sections there. I think that if we could use Ortigalita as the access and Mercy Springs as the access for now on those two ends or center, I think that's enough for now. In time, we'll look forward to seeing, but I think it'll be quite a bit of time yet before we'd be seeing that expand. For instance, if you're going to expand to the east, that would have to be a project of a developer who'd want to build something there. And I won't support new housing unless we'd be able to provide all the services for them, which right now we can't. So, which brings me to another point is that the housing, a lot of new houses being built right now, just about all of them were annexed and entitled before I even took office in 2006. I was involved in the annexation of Villa Burano, which is a triangle up there. I forget the name of the project now. It's over there in the northeastern corner of town. It was an infill triangle. It wasn't very big. And then I stepped off on the Shaughnessy Village here behind Save Mart because I felt the roads were going to be opening up into my neighborhood where I lived, and I felt that was a conflict of interest for me to be involved in that because it would have an effect on my housing, on the value of my property. So we have inherited those. So these are challenges we have. That Pacheco Boulevard, as I said, it generates a great deal of money. Don't underestimate how much money the fueling industry. I mean, these trucks coming through, these cars coming through, they not only they pay fuel tax, they pay sales tax on that fuel, along with all the sales tax they pay on everything else that comes. So the restaurants, hotels, and the stores, big box stores. We're the shopping center for the West Side, Dos Palos, Castine, San Anelo, they all come here. Some people come here, people come from Merced and Turlock for our restaurants too, because we have some of the best restaurants in the state. So that's why I feel about the Pioneer Corridor. I'd like to see Pioneer Boulevard where it is widened. I don't want to see much more done yet, but we're working with that at MCAG, and that's another reason I'm running for mayor, because a big part of being mayor, most people don't realize, is that the mayor represents the city on the Merced County Association of Governments. It's one of 11 seats. There are the 6 cities plus the 5 supervisors. The MCAG is who controls all the state and federal highway funds and state and federal project funds. So, matter of fact, it was formed back in the 60s so that Dos Palos could build a water treatment plant. And now that's the way the state funnels the money. You have to work through the cog. So it takes a mayor who's experienced with that. And I've been a councilman, and I've sat on pro tem, I sat on a couple of those meetings and have followed it and have paid a great deal of attention to it, stayed great contact with the county. I have some great contacts at MCAG. I have very good relationships with the staff over there. And I've talked to them a great deal. And you've got to work with people and understand that there's a lot of money available there, and if you don't understand how to make that work, your citizens are going to lose out. So I think that's another reason I want to run for mayor, that I am running for mayor, is that I want an experienced hand in that seat too, in that MCAG seat.
We understand that Sutter Hospital is moving forward with plans for an expanded facility. Do you know how long this will take and how much of an expansion they're talking about? Meaning, is this expansion related to the relocating of the airport and the building of a new hospital?
We have the wind studies. There's one potential area for the airport up there. We have to, the original concept was that we thought maybe to fly agricultural product in and out. But ag product, they don't fly much ag product unless it's really high-end stuff. And so that kind of got pushed to the side. We got the wind study on the property. An airport could go in out there, but if we move that airport, and we have, there's a lot of cost to the city. We've received grants for years and years from the Federal Aviation Administration, and a lot of that, some of that would have to be paid back if you don't keep airport at the same level, those sorts of things. That airport property right now is very valuable property. It's still an airport. And we'd like to be able to keep an airport in Los Banos. If we could get it moved, it would be great, which segues me to the hospital. I have been told that Sutter is in negotiations for property. I know not where that property is, and I don't know anything else about it. All I have heard is that they are negotiating to get more property to expand and make a bigger hospital. I've been nagging the city manager and a great deal about that. I said, you know, Sutter's told us they're going to expand for years, and they never have. I said, if they don't expand here pretty quick, we need to pursue looking at bringing another hospital to town. Now, Kaiser is a great deal for people in the Bay Area and the bigger cities. They're able to, and it's really good for employers too, because it's so much less expensive. The problem is we don't have enough people here for them to bring a Kaiser hospital. So we have to take another route. Hopefully this Sutter expansion will come to fruition. If it doesn't, I am going to stay on this, and we are going to put out some kind of a proposal to get another hospital or expanded hospital here, because this one is way too small. This was built by the community back in the 60s. I think it was the 60s, maybe before, but long before I moved here. And if we need to do a community thing, if we need the community to build a hospital, we can, if that's what we have to do, I'm willing to put the energy forward to make that happen. And I'm always willing to put energy forward. That may be a little different from my perspective from other people. And that is, I believe that the power of a community, when they want to do something, when they know they need something, you can unify them and you can push forward and you can generate those funds and you can get those things done. And so that hospital is one of those things that I really want to get done. I want to see happen for my health, the health of all my friends, my family is here, etc. Thank you on that. Yeah.
How do you feel on the city's plans for homelessness, and do you feel that it's enough?
Most important to understand is homeless people, most of them are homeless. Either they've got some emotional or mental challenges, or they've got some chemical dependencies.
Right.
They need treatment. And what they found is, I don't know if you've been reading lately, Houston, the city of Houston found that it used to be that we give them services, and then if we could find, and then after we give them services, then we give them some housing. But what they found now is if you can get them into some kind of housing first, that stabilizes them. And they have a lot better success rate. Now, right now, there are 16 beds available for the homeless in Los Banos. And there's an organization in town there, because it's a property acquisition. I'm not at liberty to talk a lot about it, but they're working at procuring 2 more houses to house the homeless. Another challenge we have is that the Martin versus Boise case in the Ninth Circuit Court allows that if there is not enough shelter in the area, that homeless can settle on public property and you cannot kick them off. What we're trying to do now is manage that situation while we're waiting to acquire more beds. Manage that situation so that we don't have them all over town. So we have maybe, I don't know, in various areas where we can give them a little more, maybe protect them against themselves, and maybe get them some services so that we have to, these people are human beings. They have dignity as human beings. Right. And we have to do all we can within our power to provide them with help. Some of them may need help all their lives. They may be so badly damaged mentally and emotionally that they can't survive out in the world. Others just some are down in their luck. They just need a chance to maybe a hand up. Others, if they could get some help and could have a little support, they can get out in civilization, back in society, and maybe getting jobs here and there, and living without having this terrible situation. This is very, very sad, very, very sad. I've never been homeless. I have been without money. There was a time in my parents' life, just the way things happened, that when I was in college, I had no money, and so I scratched out everything I could. And I worked 3-4 jobs, but I had the good fortune of having a skill and having all my emotional stability and mental strength that I could work all those hours. These people need help. There's a few that just like living out on their own, out in the wilderness and whatever. For those people, you got to find a place for them to be happy without them, I guess, scaring. Some people are scared of the homeless, and some homeless have some serious problems. So this housing first idea I like a lot. As you know, when I first got elected to council way back in, I think it was 2007 or so, we had some grant money, and we gave, I think it was $25,000 to the rescue mission. And we also were trying to get the homeless from Los Banos to the rescue mission in Merced. And because county has a lot more services. The county has a lot of services for homeless. And for people with challenges. We don't get money from the state or the federal government or anywhere else for homeless services. We just don't. We have to rely on the charity, so many religious organizations, and also our community organizations. Of course, the Rescue Mission, Salvation Army are 2 old stalwart organizations done fantastic work. And the churches, Man of Ministry, every church here in town feeds poor people, and in a very big way. And those are all services that we have to get with. Once again, this is one of those challenges that I don't have a quick answer to, and it's never going to be completely solved. You know, there are some problems in the world you're never going to completely solve. All you can do is continue to fight them. Yeah. It's like crime. You can lower crime. You can take a bite out of crime. You're always going to have some, so you have to, you can't lose your vigilance. And we have to be as aggressive with helping these homeless people as we are as aggressive fighting crime, as we are as getting people back on their feet after the COVID and this recession. And so one of the things that you learn when you're in government a long time or business a long time is that everything costs money, a lot of money. And so where do you find the money? And so once again, in this case, Rescue Mission is coming in, like I said, looking to purchase 2 houses. That's going to add a lot of beds. I don't know how big those houses are. Hopefully they're very large. Then we could add a lot of beds for these people. I cry inside, it tears me up to see the homeless. I'll tell you what tears me up the most is when I see a child I knew, if I walk down the street and I see a child, a beautiful child, and then 10, 15 years later, I see that child on the street, you can hardly recognize them because someone tricked them into using some heavy drugs at a young age. They got addicted and their lives have been destroyed. It breaks your heart. Got to find a way to deal with that. And I think this idea of the rescue mission, purchasing housing, and any other nonprofits and religious organizations, we can get more housing for them. Housing first is going to solve, I think, a lot more problems. That's the first big step, and then we keep servicing them as we go.
Do you feel that the city of Los Banos could do more for businesses affected by COVID-19? There's a new pizza place in town, Rico's Pizza. Visit them today at 2160 East Pacheco Boulevard in Space K. You can also order your pizza online at orderricospizza.com. That's orderricospizza.com. Go check them out today. They have the biggest pizza in town.
We follow the guidelines of the governor. We have to, of the state. Otherwise, then we could lose our qualification for funding. Like, I think we're getting $500,000 right now, but that's not going to cover the much larger losses of revenue from all the sales tax that's being lost from the lack of local commerce. You know, the local sale, when people buy stuff online, now we do have, the state does now collect sales tax to the state online, but we don't get local sales tax, as far as I know, from online purchases, unless that's changed. But true. It also, those online purchases don't employ local people either. So then the local people lose their work, and then they're not spending money locally because they don't have any to spend. Right. Then they're closing their business. So how are we going to regenerate this? Well, first of all, we're in a very, very terrible storm called COVID-19. And if you've known, I've never been out at sea, but I've read a lot. And you have to, when you're in a big storm, my father used to talk about the big storms at sea when he was in the service. And, you know, one minute you're on top of a mountain, the next minute you're in the bottom of a canyon. And when you have those big storms, you have to be very cautious as a captain of the ship to make sure you don't capsize it. And so right now we're getting through this. Some of the things I want to do are a lot of these community social activities, when we're able to do them again. This idea of now we see people like restaurants and businesses opening out on the street. I wanted to see that for years. We've had the challenge of, we have narrow sidewalks downtown, but look, it's working now. And I think if we can carry that sense of community and work with our local partners, you know, we have our local partners in town, the Chamber of Commerce and the nonprofits and the Downtown Association and Rotary and Kiwanis and Lions and 4-H and FFA, all these groups and the various social clubs and religious clubs too. We get this together. We come out guns a-blazing, as they used to say. Let's do a lot of stuff to get people up and out and active again as soon as we can. The problem is, until we get a vaccine or a cure or an absolute way to prevent the spread of this thing, we're at the mercy of this. I feel like, you know, like my parents went through the polio era, you know, and everybody was scared to death of getting polio. And then, of course, the flu epidemic, my grandmother lived through that back in 1918, I think it was. These epidemics can just cripple a civilization. They cripple your society. And right now, we're hanging on, doing the best we can, being very cautious and very safe. But as soon as we can do more, as soon as the governor and the experts and the health experts say, oh, you can do more like this if you follow these recommendations. And then, oh, we learned this about the spread. We're always learning about it, right? If you learn more, so you can do this. Well, I'm going to recommend we push forward to do all we can within those guidelines. Right. And so it's, as I said, I don't have quick and easy answers for that, but I will tell you that as soon as this storm passes, we're going to be out and going guns a-blazing, as we old say.
What are your thoughts on helping those who have lost their jobs and can't pay their rent?
We're hoping that the federal government's going to come up with another round. It's going to cost a lot up there, but in the long run, you know, big catastrophes that have hit this country. We've come through them, and we've done. It's cost a lot of money. I mean, during World War II was the largest percentage of government spending in history, and that's what it took to win World War II. And then we came out of it. 15 years later, we were in doing very, very well. Everybody who wanted a good job could get one, and I think that's what's going to happen out of this. But it comes through. The government has that role of, it's the only organization that can print money, create money, borrow money. And so it's our job to connect people to that. And also any community type volunteer donations, whatever, and there to help people. And that's very important.
How do you feel about our existing schools, and do you feel that we could do better?
The sooner we can get back to real school, the real world, the happier I'll be. And I'm a choir director, I'm a music teacher, so I teach people to make music in groups. And the technology won't let us do that yet. If I have 20 students singing in a Zoom, all I get is gobbledygook. Wow. I could deal with the latency, but I can't deal with the gobbledygook. As far as schools, I'm teaching school for so long. Children, I was taught, my mother always taught, children are the primary focus of everyone's life because they're the future of the world. And so I always take that as very important. And one thing about Los Banos is that we have a very high percentage of children here. We're talking about a town, we've got 12,000 children in a town of 40,000. 28% of the town are school children. And that doesn't count the preschool children and the students that are still, the college students that are home with their parents. We need a town that is children friendly, family friendly. I like to say Los Banos is a place where families can flourish. And that's what I want to see. And that's why these after school programs, this officer on the beat program, these activities, these social activities to bring people together. I think that these are the things that I want to do more of as a mayor.
Is there anything you would like to say to our viewers before we close?
Los Banos, my father was born here in 1921. My grandmother was born here in 1901. My father's family moved away. And in 1985, I got offered a job here. And a guy come here and I said, I knew Dad was born here. And then Dad comes to visit one day and he said, my grandparents are buried in the cemetery out there. So I go visit the cemetery and here are my great grandparents and great aunts. Wow. And I realized, wow, how much of our lives really was founded here. A lot of my cousins, when they'd come over from the Azores, they would stop in Los Banos first. This was their launching ground. And then they would move out to different places. And Los Banos has that characteristic. It's a center. It has a broad base. The thing about Los Banos, we're not known for just one thing. Gustine is a dairy town. Stockton is the port city, and San Francisco is, the gem of the West. But Los Banos has a lot of things. We have the duck hunting and the wildlife here is tremendous. The restaurants here, we have a restaurant culture here that's very good. We have, one of the most famous restaurants in the United States, the Wool Growers there. Espana's over there is at the Canal Farm Inn, which was Henry Miller's headquarters. So many great food traditions here. We have the railroad used to come through town. Farming, this was Henry Miller's headquarters. We're famous for retail and that. We are also famous, I'm a music teacher. I inherited a musical program that goes back 100 years. We had a music teacher in Los Banos, Mae Franke. She was the first, from what I was told, she was the first woman to play in the San Francisco Symphony. And she was the music teacher here for many, many years. And then Gary Wilburn was a military band director of the year. He was our band director here for 30 years. And then Anthony Ferria at the junior high, who is now on our school board. And then I got to grow up in kind of these traditions. I still have the old conducting stool from way back. And so we have all these traditions. We have a lot. We're a town for families. We have a lot of sports. We have agriculture. We're famous for agriculture here. We have, like I said, the tomato canneries, the cotton industry, and the almond industry are all huge here. The melon industry is still very big here. They don't pack in town anymore. They pack in the field. So we don't see those packing sheds the way we used to. And so one of my goals, and then now we're a commuter community. New people have moved to town because they need a place to raise their children. They can't afford to live in the Bay Area and still have a backyard, right? And so they want a place to raise their children. And we need to realize that that's why everyone has always come to Los Banos, to raise their families. And we need to connect the new people, make them feel at home, make them understand the great history that built this town and this wonderful location, and realize that this is a very special place. And I think if people understand how special their place is, I mean, you live, no, if you talk to anybody, talk to someone who grew up in New York, they're not going to live anywhere else, right? I have everything I need. San Francisco, a lot of people, they grow up in these towns, they have pride in their town. And that's what I want people to do. I want them to feel like this is a special place. And my goal is to unite all these different people from these different areas and these different activities so that we can really make Los Banos flourish when we come out of this COVID-19.
We want to thank you so much, Mr. Faria, for joining us here on the Los Banos Today show. We appreciate your time, and we hope to have you come back soon. Thank you once again. Have a great day. Up next is Paul Llanez, former LB police officer. Hello, Mr. Llanez, and thank you for joining us here on the show. We appreciate you taking some time to answer these questions for us, giving us your feedback. For those of our viewers who may not know you, could you please introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background and experience?
I've spent 18 years in law enforcement. I started in 2003 with the Los Banos Police Department as a police officer. After a short period of time, I got promoted to a special assignment. I was assigned to the Merced Narcotics Task Force. I worked there for a little over 4 years. During that time, again, I was promoted to the position of officer in charge or acting task force commander in the task force. And then from there, I moved back to patrol with Los Banos. And I always dreamed of starting a small business and growing a small business. And so in 2010, that's what I did. While still serving as a full-time police officer, I started a company called Knowledge Saves Lives. And we started doing emergency preparedness consulting and training. There was only a couple of us that started this, 2 of us, as a matter of fact. And then in 2015, with the blessings of my family, I decided to go full-time with it and really pursue my dream. So I stayed on as a reserve police officer, volunteering 2 days a month, working patrol and doing training. And I was elected as the Police Officer Association Union President. But from the private sector side, since 2015, things have grown. I now have 26 employees, and I have divisions in both parts of the state. I have a division in Orange County, and then I'm here in my office today in Merced doing this interview. So,
Paul, the number one question on everyone's mind these days is crime and gangs in Los Banos. Can you tell us, if elected, what would you do to both support and grow the police and fire departments?
Right now, public safety is a hot topic. It's not a new issue by any means. But you know, as I'm talking to you right now, I know that we are investigating our 51st shooting of the year. And so this is violent crime and gang crime specifically is a problem, and we need to address it. And we really got to start with the staffing levels. You know, our city has kind of been reactive rather than proactive the last few years, even dating back as far as our patrol levels. Minimum staffing is the same number it was in the 1980s. And so we really have to start, you know, solving 2020 problems and getting out of that 1980s mentality. And so that's something that I look forward to actually addressing by bringing in, you know, a gang task force. You know, that's my dream, to start a gang task force and be a proactive unit in Los Banos, as well as bumping up patrol staffing and even, you know, downtown foot patrol. I want people to feel safe when they're shopping. And so kind of grow those aspects of our public safety.
Jobs is the second most asked question by our viewers. And the big question on everyone's mind is, if elected, how do you feel about bringing tech and manufacturing jobs to Los Banos? And how would you go about doing that?
I've done a lot of research on this. I've done a lot of homework. And the thing that I'm trying to wrap my head around is, what resource and business do our citizens really want to bring in? And then what type of businesses can we sustain jobs and bring a lot of jobs? And the answer to both of those questions is healthcare. I think we really need to supplement the current healthcare we have. You know, we have a great hospital. However, it's very small for what we have, and to match the infrastructure, we got to grow. So I think, you know, possibly having the conversation of bringing in another healthcare facility, another hospital, or even possibly in a medical park type thing, you know, bring in imaging centers and cancer centers and things like that. That's going to bring the resources that we need as citizens, and it's also going to bring in the jobs for those professionals. And so I think that would be the way to do it.
We've all heard there might be a business park built in Los Banos. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of research done on the business park. I know that the city's been doing some work in the conversations they have. I don't know what those conversations are, so I'm curious myself. I want to learn about it.
The bypass has been the elephant in the room, so to speak, for many years now. And with the widening of Pioneer Road, we may get just a local bypass. Do you feel that's going to be adequate to relieving congestion on Pacheco Boulevard? And what are your thoughts on this?
I've actually started to ask some questions, and the first question I wanted to ask is how do the business owners on Pacheco feel about this? Because to me, yes, it's important to address traffic. That's an infrastructure issue. But I want to make sure that we're bypassing traffic and not necessarily tax revenue, especially small business revenue. So this is kind of the information. If that means I got to walk up and down Pacheco and ask everybody, I will. But this is sort of the information that I want. I noticed too that with the way that the housing is in Los Banos, we're growing a ton on the north side and maybe not so much on the south side. So, maybe having some sort of, the bypass or widening roads, whatever it may be, it may serve us better on the north side after we do our homework, because that's where the majority of people are moving into.
We understand that Sutter Hospital is moving forward with plans for an expanded facility. Do you know how long this will take and how much an expansion they are talking about? Meaning, is this expansion related to the relocating of the airport and the building of a new hospital?
I don't have any input as to what the plan is. Like I said, I'm trying to get in office. I'm not there yet. So I'm not privy to all the conversations that go on. Right. I am glad that Sutter has taken a proactive approach. I think that's fantastic. But I have the same questions you do. What is the growth plan? I've actually, recently I've gone to school for strategic planning. And one of the things I've learned is the managing expectations. So finding out, what one side is saying versus the other side, and then managing those expectations. It helps when we all have transparency.
How do you feel on the city's plans for homelessness, and do you feel it's enough?
And I think, again, it comes to strategizing is, build a plan. In the business world, I've learned that everything might look fantastic on paper until you go out and do it. But I do appreciate the thoughts and ideas that go on paper. But we really have to, with a structured plan, especially with the homeless, we got to be careful not to just categorize a person into one category. Oh, they're homeless, so that's the issue. We need to address the resources. I really think having our own homeless shelter on the west side of Merced County in Los Banos would do us a lot of good. It would stop the encampments, stop the reason for the encampments, and do a single source solution to it. But that won't be the end all be all by any means. It's going to be constant movement and planning, multiple resources and agencies involved. Right.
Do you feel the city of Los Banos could do more for businesses affected by COVID-19?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And as a community, I'm sure that no one sat around thinking, okay, this is going to happen. But I'm from the mindset, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So to put plans in place for these types of emergencies, the payroll protection loan, like you're talking about, or the EIDL money, it would have been nice to have some form of mass communication. Here's what's offered to you. Here's what resources are available. And just that constant flow of communication. That's something that in business, I have to have for me to make good decisions for the company as a whole. And the city's no different. So we need to have that constant communication back and forth with the businesses. Everything's ever changing. And so that's what I look forward to bringing in.
If elected mayor, what is your plan for reopening businesses in Los Banos?
The thing is, it's community involvement, no matter what, and everybody's in a different situation. It's completely fluid. But I look at it from a leadership standpoint, is creating that positive energy, that positive attitude. We are all in this together. And so it's going to be a combined solution. And that's the way I look at it. And I think that starts at the government level by, being available, being there to communicate, looking up things, doing some research, finding out what people need, and then just sharing that information with them. I think that's the start to it. We're going to bounce back from this thing, and we're going to get through it, but we're going to have to do it together.
How do you feel about our existing schools, and what could we do better?
So I'm in my first week as a distance learning veteran teacher, so to speak, with my first grader at home and my freshman. My heart goes out to these teachers, the way that they're adapting and working and doing what they can. My heart goes out to them. They really are doing a great job with the situation they're in. Yeah. That being said, my opinion is these kids got to get back in school. They're missing so many things, emotional and social and things like that. Those decisions, even as mayor, won't be up to me. It's something working with the school districts and the county and the state. And so I understand it. But again, my heart goes out to them. They're doing an amazing job.
Is there anything you would like to say before we close?
You know, and I hear I've heard the determination or the definition that I'm the outsider, you know, in this election. And I just want people to understand, I am new to politics. I'm not new to leadership by any means, and I'm definitely not new to hard work. So I think Los Banos is ready for some change. We're ready to move in a progressive direction, and I'm ready to step up and take that challenge. And so I want people to understand. And I also want them to be able to reach out to me. You know, I have a website, phone number, email, whatever it is. Reach out to me, and I want your input.
Mr. Llanez, I want to thank you so much for joining us here today. And we appreciate your time, and we hope you come back on the show soon. And thank you for joining us here on the Los Banos Today Show. Have a good night.